morning, everyone. It is Trending Thursday. Boy, this week is just flying by. You know, so much goodness going on that you don't even realize what it is of the week. How many of you can relate to that? I'm sure a lot. But good morning, everyone. This is Carol Sue, aka Naughty Boss, live with
TwoSistas. Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Janice, aka Wellness Diva 5.0. Today, obviously, Trending Thursday, August 4th, 2022. And we have amazing guests on. And I just want to say, before I formally introduce her, many people suffer with gut issues. And we're going to have a very in-depth conversation today. So if anyone who's viewing or listening to this right now, if you have any questions, please feel free to put in the comments and we'll make sure that Clio sees them. So we want to welcome to the TwoSistas podcast, Clio. I'm not going to say your last name because I always butcher it up, but welcome to the TwoSistas podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Now,
our pleasure. We're super excited to hear everything you're going to be sharing with us.
Yeah, and she went to the same health coaching school that I went to, IIN, and she's certified. She specializes in gut health, specifically with IBD and chronic digestive issues. Now, we had a little chat before we came on, but Clio, if you would just kind of share with us your experience with that and how that developed you to want to go to II and learn more and really specialize in gut health issues.
Sure. So before I start on why I went to IIN and become a health coach, I'm just going to say that I studied law in Paris. So I'm a lawyer. So I did a huge career shift. And what drove me to become a health coach was really my own journey to health and wellness. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which is an irritable bowel disease, in 2005 when I was 18 years old. And I had every symptoms out there: chronic diarrhea, chronic pain, extreme fatigue. Sometimes I would be bedridden for days. I would some nights fall asleep hugging the toilet. So it was really, really bad. And when I was diagnosed, the doctors told me that I had to take medication for the rest of my life and advised to go manage my stress, which meant therapy for them. So I had a lot of side effects from medication. And it was actually, so I had some periods where I was better, but mostly it was getting me weaker and sicker by the day. So I knew that I had to quit at some time. And when my flare subsided, I really went on a crusade for the right answer, the right medication, the right doctor, the right healer, the right yoga pose. And it took me, fast forward 7 years, to really be able to overcome this digestive distress and be able to reduce my symptoms and regain my energy. So I was really enthusiastic with the results that I had, and I wanted to learn more about how to be holistically healthy, mind, body, and soul. And that's what drove me to go to IIN. And before I actually made the jump, I had really flirted with the idea of doing it, but I had told myself excuses like I don't have the money, I don't have the time. But at one period in my life, it was the right time. So I made the jump and I never regretted it. And I started it with just for me, for my information, not necessarily wanted to do this professionally. But then when I saw that people were suffering from chronic digestive issue, even though they didn't know it, because a chronic digestive issue, it's not just bloating or diarrhea or constipation, but an imbalance in the gut can manifest in many other ways: chronic fatigue, chronic colds, eczema, acne, many other ways. So they didn't know that they had a chronic digestive issue. And that led me to want to help them with the tools that I learned at IIN, but mostly my own experience at overcoming a chronic digestive disease. So yes, that's what led me to do IIN and do this professionally. And I've been doing it for the past 2 years, and it's been just a blessing ever since I started.
Wow. As obviously Carol Sue and I can relate to, we are big proponents of gut health. And, there goes that saying, you're either feeding a disease or you're not. And I know from what you've said and from what, our trainings and whatnot, digestive issues, as you said, goes way beyond being in the bathroom. There's other symptoms that go along with that. And, our body's given us cues, but a lot of people either don't realize it, are ignoring it. What would you say to somebody, or what would be the catalyst? Like, for instance, if you're eating, let's say, fried food, and a couple hours, within an hour or something, you're getting sick, like chronically getting sick from that, which isn't just like a little thing, and could last for several days. What would you say to someone who is facing something like that and may not specifically know, but know that something is going on?
So that's a great question, because a lot of people don't necessarily know that they do have a chronic digestive issue, or they don't realize how often they have such symptoms. So I would say that if you have bloating, if you have some issues, if you have constipation, if you have diarrhea, if you have bloating and gas with everything you eat, and not specific foods like pizza, for example, that whenever you eat pizza, even if you don't have a digestive issue, you feel bloated a little bit. But if you cannot go anywhere without looking for the closest bathroom, and then that might be the sign that there's something more serious than, and if it's just an occasional situation, if you eat something and you have some bloating, but it's occasional, you may need to cut down on your portions. But if no matter how many portions you eat, you burp a lot also, that may be signs that it would be more serious, and it's worth noting it. So, but when it comes to foods, wow, that's a big discussion. We can definitely talk about foods, but I wanted to put it out there just to if you're having some symptoms like this, constipation, diarrhea, bloating, and gas with every single thing that you eat, and you burp a lot after eating, or you have some pain, or you can't go out without looking at the closest bathroom, then these are signs that there might be something more serious going on.
So is there any direct, because I know you obviously don't want to focus on the food piece to it, and I get that, but is there certain food groups that are detrimental to someone that suffers from Crohn's? In other words, obviously I can relate, I understand what you're saying if you're having this reaction to everything you eat, but some people don't. Some people it's certain food groups. So is that not a correlation, or is it?
It is definitely. I just wanted to say that for people who don't know that they have a chronic digestive issue, the first signs is this. Then there are definitely food groups. So there are some inflammatory foods, common inflammatory foods, whether you have an irritable bowel disease like Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis or IBS, or just a chronic digestive issue. The common inflammatory foods, the most inflammatory food is sugar. And most people know that sugar increases weight, it's bad for the teeth, but they don't necessarily know what it does for the gut and why it's so inflammatory. So basically, very quickly, we have may have heard about the gut microbiome, which is the trillions and trillions of bacteria that we have in our gut. And it's the most complicated organ that we have in our body. And to make it really, really simple, we have bad bacteria that increase inflammation and therefore all the symptoms, and good bacteria that promote overall health and wellness. And whenever somebody is experiencing symptoms like the one we mentioned before, it means that there is an increased inflammation. Therefore, there are more bad bacteria than good. And what we want to do is bring down the bad bacteria and increase the good bacteria to have a balance in the gut. What sugar does and why it's so inflammatory, it is the best food for the bad bacteria. So when we eat sugar, the bad bacteria eat it, they multiply, therefore we increase inflammation and all the symptoms related to digestive distress. And so when we talk about sugar, we talk about refined kind of sugar, so cookies, cakes, chocolate, but there's a lot of hidden sugars in a lot of things that we eat. And people ask me what, for example. So let's say that you eat some pasta, some whole grain pasta, spirulina pasta, which is more healthy than the refined type of pasta, the white pasta. But then you put some prepared tomato sauce that you bought from the store. There's a lot of sugar in that.
Right.
And it's something that people don't necessarily make the correlation. So sugar is the most inflammatory food. And the second one is dairy. It's very, and people with a chronic digestive issue, without knowing what it does to their gut, they can't eat dairy. They just eliminate it. They just eliminate dairy. Yeah. So that's basically the two most inflammatory food. Then there's gluten, that people just kind of eliminated. What I want to say regarding gluten, so all the other inflammatory, except for sugar and dairy, unless when it comes to gluten, there's a lot of research, not research, but unless you are diagnosed with celiac or you have a gluten sensitivity or a gluten allergy, then with any foods really that you exclude without having diagnosed as sensitive to that particular food, you're actually depriving your good bacteria of a good source of food. So, and a lot of people do that. They just exclude food groups. They exclude legumes. A lot of people exclude, like, they don't eat lentils, they don't eat chickpeas because there's a lot of fiber, which increases symptoms. So, and they just naturally exclude food groups. And that can be detrimental for their overall gut health balance, because then you're depriving of the good bacteria of their food. And therefore they're just, they decrease in number. So the worst thing that you can do, we are all in different journeys. So people that have increased symptoms, that just got out of hospital, that are having flare, obviously it's best to not eat legumes. But down the line, we want to include legumes. We want to include as much variety in our plate as possible so that we feed all the good bacteria in our gut. That leads me to something else that I want to say. When people, because we talked about the symptoms that people have when they have a chronic digestive issue that they may not know of, they may think that they have bloating, that they have a lot of bloating with a lot of things that they eat, or gas or diarrhea or whatever symptom, and they may ignore it. Like they may say, oh, it's just bloating, then I'll exclude that type of food, or it's nothing, it's a little bit of gas. But ignoring these types of symptoms can lead to more chronic issues, digestive issues, and that can lead you down the line to not be able to incorporate foods that you really want to have in your diet, like vegetables and fruits, that because they have a lot of fiber, therefore they can increase symptoms. So this is why it's important to pay attention to the symptoms that you have whenever you eat something, and not ignoring the symptoms. That when you think that you may have a chronic digestive issue, then maybe treating it, going to see a professional, a health professional, doing some tests, or seeing just a specialist, not just ignoring it.
And I would imagine, let's say, obviously, if somebody has, we're going to use Crohn's disease for our example, and that is eating dairy products, chronically getting ill, the inflammation increases, which can cause other things in the body to happen.
Yes. So more than 90% of our immune system is in the gut. Hippocrates had said that the gut is the gateway to health. So whenever the gut is compromised or imbalanced, then our immune system goes down and we're more prone to other diseases. So yes, it does make sense whenever we have Crohn's disease or another digestive issue without it being a diagnosis, and we eat certain foods that increase our inflammation, therefore compromising our gut microbiome, then our immune system goes down, making us prone to other illnesses. Yeah, definitely.
This is a very interesting and very educational topic, and one that, Carol Sue and I always are chatting about. What would you say is, for instance, somebody suffering these things that are going on, and they really don't know where to turn? What would be your advice to them? For instance, should they immediately go to their doctor? Like, what are some of the things that you would suggest? You had briefly mentioned that.
Yes, sure. So when somebody thinks that they do have a chronic digestive issue, what I would do is to go see a specialist. So, and a health professional like a GI doctor is the most specialized professional that deals with that kind of symptoms. And even if it just, you may do a series of tests or not. If you happen to do a series of tests, and I know that a lot of people are on the fence about it, obviously we can't obligate anybody to do anything, but my advice would be that if tests are good because they can either open the way to a little bit more of serious problem than getting medication like I had to do to get my inflammation, my flare down. But then I had to do like a more in-depth work because medication treat symptoms. But when you have a digestive disease, you do need medication to just take your flare down. Or at least we can exclude a more serious issue. And then you can go and take the treatment that is more adapted to you. So that's why I would just go to the health professional at the beginning to just do some tests. And for you to have a clarity of mind, I talked to a lot of people who have had pain for a lot of many, many months. And it didn't necessarily go into their mind to go see a health professional. Again, it's because, oh, this is the way that I've been for the past months, and this is how I'm going to live for the rest of my life, which is not true. And this is not way to live. And then you can either go to the doctor or not. Again, I recommend the doctor because then you can have a clarity about where to go after. But wherever happens, the medication helps treat the symptom. And then you can have other approaches, more holistic approaches that deal with the root cause of a chronic digestive issue. When you have a chronic digestive issue, the root cause is mostly emotional. It's not that much, it's not like trauma. So people that go on medication, and I work a lot with them, with these people that are on medication because they have a disease, like Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, I bring the holistic aspect of it. But yeah, my first step would be to go to a health professional to just have a clarity about what's going on in your body.
Right. And that is so important. Carol Sue, as we've always chatted about the gut health, like this is so informative. And
well, I chuckled when she was talking about dairy, because like dairy is like, to me, is like the evil of evils. And, like so many people, depending on your age group, obviously, we grew up in an era where, you were just the constant of milk does the body good and the milk carton and, dairy, not only the whole dairy group, but dairy, meats, poultry, a lot of things are just not processed the same way they were 30, 40 years ago. They're injected with all kinds of really bad hormones, just things that are not good for you. But dairy as a whole has not been historically as good as most people have been thought process into believing. And I think, we always share the Netflix documentary, What the Health, to get a better perspective so you understand what you're really putting in your body. And that dairy is the root cause of a lot of not only digestion issues, but as you talked about, skin issues, ear, nose, and throat, all kinds of gut issues, joint issues. A lot of people that suffer from, asthma or any kind of respiratory issues, it's related to dairy. And then you combine that with one of the biggest things that food is being sourced with and has been for years is a lot of dyes, which also trigger a lot of gut issues. And if you notice, we've actually talked about different corporations, different manufacturers, where they process it one way for the United States, but over in Europe, in other countries, they have stricter rules and regulations for what is being put into food. And you could have the same identical manufacturer, and if you look at the ingredients, you will see it totally different because they've just got stricter laws. And the United States being one of, the leader in the free world to, allow this to continue to happen. It's a sad situation, but I think when I think of dairy, and which is the number one cause for breast cancer, and the ironic piece to that, you see a pink ribbon on a milk carton. And if you go into their websites, we've actually had people, kind of confront them and say, wait a minute, your number one culprit, you're promoting dairy, which that is not good for somebody, who's got breast cancer. It's like one of the leading causes. And, it goes back to follow the money. And I think when people understand that the only person that's in control of their gut health is not the manufacturer, it's not the grocery store, it's not your cravings, it's you saying, you know what, is it worth it to me to eat that food group? And then emotionally, your first thing about eating and or living your life to your fullest is surrounded by where the next toilet is. That's got to be a wake-up call. If that's not a wake-up call to someone, I don't know what else is, because I wouldn't, I mean, I have IBS, but I'm very careful of what I eat. I know the triggers, and to me, it's not worth it. The mental connection I have with food cannot be, and I guess I should say it this way. If your mental connection to food is so great that you're ignoring your gut health, besides, and this is going to come off pretty harsh, besides seeing a nutritionist and someone that's going to help guide you, go see a psychiatrist, because that's an issue when you weigh that emotional connection to food more than you weigh on the, what it's doing to your gut.
No, I agree. And you touched on a lot of good points. People have, so I experimented with so many different diets at the beginning and so many different diets. I was really focused on the right answer, the right elimination diet, the right healer, the right doctor, and I was this quest for the right answer was so over like life consuming, so obsessive, so exhausting really, but I really definitely so desperately wanted to feel better. And I realized that the information out there is so extremely confusing and so contradictory at times. There were people, I read articles telling me quit carbs, and then another article, never quit carbs, but quit protein, or, for my IBD. And it was just very confusing, but a lot of people are in that at the beginning, they're trying to heal, and I was trying to heal so bad, and then after 7 years of incessant pain, I realized that no elimination diet would ever work, because there was something else eating me away, like eating me. And that brings me to the emotional digestion that you said too, that this emotional, eating is emotional. And so when we start working on all these things, like when people start making the connections between how they feel and what they eat. So that means like how you feel throughout the day. It's an inward process. Instead of trying to heal, you just have to do nothing and kind of go inward and try to make the connections between how you feel. So let's say you wake up in the morning and you feel stressed because you have a very big meeting in the afternoon, then probably you're going to eat some sugar, some fat. And because I work with this with my clients, and whenever they start making these connections, oh, I feel stress, I'm going for sugar, I'm going for high fat, that's where they can actually change the narrative and work on their emotions, because food is emotional, and it's a process of first stop trying to heal, stop trying to, like I did for so many years. I was outsourcing my healing to experts, to like the internet. And then you realize that you were having some results, but nothing sustainable. And it was just kind of going inwards. And it's not about the diet. I have so many people come and ask me about the diet. And a lot of the people that I work with have a balanced diet. They don't necessarily eat junk food. They have a balanced diet. So it's like they are waiting for me to tell them the secrets to this balanced, clean diet. And for sure, like we said, diet is important. We have to take out inflammatory food and add in really good, nutritious food that will feed the good bacteria. But then if you don't, let's say that something really bad or like stressful or frustrating or sad happens in your life, if you don't have the tools to be able to deal with this effectively, then what we'll do is to go back to eating the trigger foods, like the sugar, the fat, that will trigger all the symptoms. And we won't know what happened, like what drove the symptoms and what made it increase. So it's a lot about stop trying to heal and kind of do this inward work of seeing the emotions before these emotions just control your eating and increase your symptoms. It's a beautiful work when people are ready to do this emotional digestion, that I call that process of really stop doing nothing. And it's in this space of nothing that you can really get reconnected to your body and to this gut intuition that was so disconnected when you're trying so many things to heal. And and it's a process that I've been through and that I had to go through to feel the emotions, because a lot of so when I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, doctors told me that the cause is unknown, but mostly repressed emotions and stress may may aggravate the flares. So, and repressed emotions actually stay in the gut. So I have a lot of people telling me I have some belly fat, I'm very thin, but I have some belly fat around. And I know that for having done this work, and I actually do workshops live with this, repressed emotions come in the gut. So whenever you do this inward work and start asking yourself, like listening to the signs that your body's sending you every single day, all the time, actually, not just every single day, all the time. And you do just nothing. And it's in that nothing that you can actually reconnect to that gut intuition that you disconnected. And it's that gut intuition, that inner voice that is going to really give you the answers to your healing. At IIN, Janice, you may know, like the founder, Joshua, has this quote, like, the body can heal itself by itself if given half the chance. And the half the chance is really not trying to heal, but actually do this inward work and listening to the signs that our body's sending you all the time that we're trying to ignore so much.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
there's definitely an emotional connection there. And, we really promote no diet, because diet is, we all diet. I mean, if people look at the actual word, what is dieting? It's eating. It's whether you choose a well-balanced because I do believe our body needs every single food group. Some you may have to limit based on your current digestion issues or other issues that you may have. Of course, you want to identify them and either stay clear of them altogether. But there's so many good sources of good flavored food that people ignore because they're so much into elimination. Now, obviously, elimination is proactive and depending on your situation. But people that strictly eat, say, a keto diet or a no carbs diet, or completely vegetable diet. There's something to say about just having a little piece of all of them, because our body requires different nutrients. So, to say that there's, the only way you can have success in feeling good, controlling whatever medical issues that you have going on, and or, health, wellness, weight management, is only done by strict elimination is such a fallacy. And I think we've been a society, especially over the last, 6 to 7 years, of these different type of what I call, they're a fat diet. You may have some, initial success, but your body can't sustain that type of lack of nutrition, because there are certain food sources that our body requires for a reason. And that's why we always constantly talk about the very colorful plate. Obviously, know your triggers, like you're talking about, but don't purposely eliminate. I think sugar as a whole, was plunged in the 60s and, definitely the 50s, 60s, and 70s. It was, what we considered a staple to the diet, which now obviously, because a lot of times it goes back to the way it's processed, there are some natural good sugars out there. So we don't want to say that sugar as a whole is bad. Refined sugar. And I think a lot of people have to really start understanding the terminology of food and not categorize one food group as totally being bad, not really fully understanding that there's better natural resources to that same type of flavor, which is also going to add the added value and nutrients that our gut needs.
I totally agree. when you mention about diet, it's again people who are trying to find a solution, trying to heal.
Yep.
And I do unfortunately know a lot of people who try keto. So keto, or any kind of diet, but it's because you mentioned keto and I happen to know people who do that. So keto was really about epilepsy, people suffering from epilepsy. So it's a very restrictive diet, but any kind of diet should not be, you may experiment, but for a very short amount of time. A diet is not here to go to just be on a diet forever. And it's good to see, to experiment, to get to know you a little bit better and yourself and know your triggers. And I completely agree with know your triggers. And it starts with understanding, like doing this inward work and not trying to outsource your healing to dieting.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I totally agree. And when it comes to sugar, it's so the elimination diet. So eliminating, it's not a diet, but it's an elimination for a certain amount of time to eliminate this inflammatory foods. The only reason being for you to see how you feel when you take out
Right.
this inflammatory food, but you add in really nutritious food and
Right.
full of vitamins that are going to feed the good bacteria. And I've seen it all over again. Whenever we take out this refined types of sugar, people have reduced symptoms in as early as
Right.
2 weeks, and then they sleep better, their skin clears, and then that clarity, that awareness, then they can make a conscious choice about whether they want to reintroduce it or just exclude it altogether, or just have some sugar during specific like events, celebrations, and things like this. So, but this is you being aware and being able to make a conscious choice that will sustain your body, and being able to trust your body. So many people that are going through a chronic digestive issue, and I've heard that from some of my clients at the beginning, was if I could only take my gut and throw it away, I'd be really happy. So it's it's important to see a little bit about how you feel like when you eliminate these foods, and be able to make a conscious choice and reconnect to your body and actually trust that your body knows what it needs to heal, and it's here to making you thrive instead of working against you. So that's the that point. Elimination diet, eliminating food groups, I don't agree with that at all. As you mentioned, sometimes you need to eliminate, like reduce
Right.
some food groups when you're out of a flare. When you're in a flare, you can't eat vegetables, legumes, you can't.
Right.
There's too much fiber. But down the line, you want to have, first of all the food groups, as many as possible, and then as much variety as possible. And people don't understand when I say that variety. And I know that because there's so much information about what it means to have a varied diet. A varied diet means not eating the same things every single day, not eating the same breakfast, the same lunch, because what we end up doing, we end up feeding some kinds of good bacteria that outcompete the other ones. So the good bacteria that are not being fed end up dying,
Right.
increasing symptoms and flares. So what people want to do is to have 1 to 3 alternatives for breakfast, 1 to 3 alternatives for lunch, and for dinner as well. So we don't end up eating the same thing every single day. And you mentioned colorful foods. Totally. What I tell my clients is that what you want in your plate is to have as much color as possible, so that you have as many nutrients, as many vitamins in your body as possible, because each nutrient has a very specific works on different organs. So that's why you want as many nutrients as possible and as many food groups as possible. So I agree, for sure.
Eat the
Right.
right.
And then just having that analogy that You know, I think people have to understand your gut is really your second brain. And Jan and I always talk about that, right, Jan? Just your gut is your second brain, and it you know, just like your brain needs to be fed with good information and a variety to get those endorphins up. Your gut also needs a variety and colorful food items. So.
And I just want to make an analogy here. You know, we always talk about news alerts, right? Your body is giving you news alerts. Your gut is giving you news alerts. So on that note, oh my gosh, this has been such an amazing conversation. Clio, we can't thank you enough for being with the TwoSistas podcast today. How can our viewers and listeners connect with you further?
Sure, it was a pleasure. I always love talking about the gut. So people can get in touch with me through my website, which is www.magnifique life with Crohn's. I think you'll put it in the comments, like in the description. So
yes.
And they can, there's a free starter kit that they can download. And it's about how to heal your gut. It's specific to Crohn's, but it can really relate to every digestive issue, really. So there's a quiz, there's tips, and there's videos about breath work that I use in order to heal that stress response. Stress can impact and negatively impact the symptoms. And they can also book a free call with me if they'd like to, so that they can implement what we said for them. So yeah, it's through my website.
That's
Awesome.
wonderful. And obviously I'll make sure all that information gets in the show notes. We can't thank you enough again. Thank you for being here. Today is Trending Thursday. And what's trending in your world? My name is Janice, aka Wellness Diva 5.0, and I'm with
TwoSistas, and this is Carol, so aka Naughty Boss, going to make sure that I've got a variety colored plate today. We hope you do, and that's what should be trending. Colorful plates today. Let us know how you love the show. We thank you very much, Chloe, for just bringing a wealth of information. And I think the key piece is really, really just listening to your body. It's giving you cues. It's giving you signs. But are you listening? We will see you tomorrow for a fantabulous Friday. Have a great Trending Thursday, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone.